I think part of the allure of going out on your own, right, for journalists that I've seen do this, is, hey, look, I got to write the stories that I want to write, right? And it's not to say that they couldn't always do that, but there's definitely editors and kind of other things at play when you're writing stories, and so that's an attractive component to it. But what you lose is those editors. You lose some of the support staff.
Mhm.
You lose some of the resources. So, kind of, how have you thought about the pros and cons of those large organizations, right? You get some freedom, but you also lose some resources, and just kind of like, how do you balance that in your head and think about it as you kind of start now?
Yeah. So, I mean, I've done 7 years as a full-time reporter after starting out freelance. And I feel like if I were to do this starting out, I wouldn't know what I was doing. Like, I mean, I started out, doing Forbes blogging when Forbes would let lots of people, go and use its platform. And that was like a good learning moment for me. And it was a way for me to sort of make mistakes in real time. Um, Now, like, I feel like I have an idea, of what I'm doing, and I feel confident that I'll be able to find the stories that are going to cut through. And like, with my newsletter beforehand, I think that watching the type of stuff that I would write and how it would resonate with people was like a good chance for me to sort of give this a shot, experiment a little bit, and see if it could be something more broad. I feel like everyone could use an editor. Like, you can't replace the value an editor brings. Um, so while I'm excited to start assigning myself stories, I am gonna miss that second set of eyes. This isn't something interesting that Ben Smith brought up in one of his recent columns about, people going out and going independent, whether it's celebrities or like, you know, um, people with influential tech followings or like B-list journalists like myself. It's like uh, the services that are um, there for you, like Substack, may eventually start doing something like, once they get enough people, are they going to have an editor on call that you can just, give a call to and talk a little bit about? I can see that happening. Are they going to have healthcare? Okay, that might be more of a stretch, but the editor thing certainly possible. And until that day, like, when I have something that's pretty, controversial or I'm not sure about, I'll just gut check it. Like, I'm lucky to have friends who are reporters, who, I probably can't ask them every day, but every now and again, I'm sure I can say, hey, can you just take a look at this before I hit the publish button? And I don't know if it's going to be something that will be smooth all the time. Like, it will definitely have hiccups in the way that working in an established media corporation, um, you know, wouldn't have as many of. And, my approach to this is to admit that that's going to happen, to ask my readers to trust me, to admit when I mess up because I will, and to learn and grow from it.
Yeah, look, you already know this, but I'd be remiss if I didn't tell you. The whole key is the persistence of just doing it in a very disciplined manner, right? Hey, if I'm going to
Hmm.
write every Monday, and
Hmm.
definitely make the mistakes and stuff. But I think I've been writing on Substack for 2 years now, actually,
Hmm.
as of May, and that's probably the most defendable thing I've done. Is I just did it every day, right? And a lot of
Hmm.
other people started out and then stopped at some point. How do you think about this changing the content you write? And what I mean by that is when you're writing a story at BuzzFeed, it's less your opinion and it's much more kind of reporting the facts. Now you do have that trust of the reader, right? They're subscribing to hear from you.
Hmm.
Do you think that that leads to more opinionated pieces? Do you want to write more opinion? Like, talk a little bit about how you kind of balance the opinion component, given that now it's less, hey, I'm just reading this on BuzzFeed and maybe I don't know or I haven't paid attention to who the writer is,
Hmm.
to now, no, I'm specifically getting this because I've chosen to get content from Alex.
Yeah, I mean, I think the reporting will lead the way. Um, so people are going to hear the reporting first and then my opinion second. But I think that there's definitely going to be more opinion in the stuff that I write, and I'm excited to do that. I don't think there should be in any form of journalism. Well, actually, maybe that's debatable, but like every venue, you should have, if you have an opinion, you should have the ability to write it. Otherwise, we're holding stuff back from readers, and you know, who does that? Like, yeah, what type of good does that do? I'm not into it. So, yeah, I think the readers of this newsletter will hear what I think for real. Um, there might be surprised, like like I talked about narratives. Like oftentimes coverage goes in narratives. People say, "What's the big story?" and then they all try to advance. And I'm just kind of skeptical of that a lot of the time. Like people will not hear, after reading a story in the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal and BuzzFeed and Fortune and Forbes, they won't see my, same story. They're going to see a different perspective from me. So it's going to be, there'll be a lot of first person. There'll be some opinion. I mean, my book is like a good example. And in Always Day One, um, you'll see the reporting lead. I feel like a reader can kind of get lost in the reporting, and then I'll bring it back into like what I saw and what I felt. And yeah, like I think it'll be a two-way conversation. It will be me learning from subscribers, them learning from me, and who knows, like it might go in different interesting directions. We could get spiritual. We can think about, things like meaning, which I think is important to think about when you think about tech. And ultimately, I'll just let that two-way discussion drive.